Hello there folks, we are back again for another video. In this one we're going to be looking at a new article that came through from the folks at Games Workshop, which is all about the new edition of the Middle-earth strategy battle game and what that entails. So they had a bit of a chat with the developers and all sorts of things like that, the designers, and we're pretty much going to go through this and have a look at what it's all about and yeah, have a chat about things and commentate on them as we see them. So yes, here we go. As you may have heard, the new edition will focus on the upcoming The Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim. Very, very cool indeed. This is the incredibly exciting prospect. It's the first new movie we've been able to work on since the Hobbit motion picture trilogy. Whilst we can't go into too many details just yet, more in the coming weeks, not months, which is good, you'll find a taster of what to expect from the next edition below. Immediately, that sounds great. Love that they're going to be focusing on the War of the Rohirrim as the new sort of focus for the new edition, and I guess that new set that they're probably going to be working on. Be very interested to see if we get that new kind of set of plastic miniatures, potentially new characters in plastic and all that kind of stuff. Maybe, well, it'll be very, very interesting to see whether or not they do miniatures that are akin to the anime art, but I don't think they will, because it wouldn't gel very well with what already exists out there. So fingers crossed we have something that's a little bit of a halfway house, or at least uses the look of the Games Workshop range but draws from the designs and the ideas from the War of the Rohirrim movie. The entire core rules have been rewritten in an effort to streamline and modernise both the way that the rules are presented and the game itself. Language, consistent terminology, and making the rules easier to follow have been a priority, and a section of rules have been added to inject even more narrative flavour into the game. There are a number of things we wanted to tackle, but the important thing to point out is that those among us who have been playing for many years, the new edition will still stay the same. We are always listening to the fans of Middle-earth strategy battle game, who have much to say, and much of the work is on to the new edition to bring your feedback on board. So a lot of the core mechanics are still going to be there, which is great, and they carry on to talk about that a little bit more. As Jay says, there are no major changes to the core mechanics of the game, which have stayed the same since the game's first release back in 2001. The new edition will build on a solid foundation of the past. That isn't to say that there aren't some minor changes. There is always room for improvement, and we'll go into those a little bit later. And we in the Middle-earth team have spent a great deal of time working on this edition to provide what we believe is the best version of Middle-earth to date. Great to see that the core of the game is the same mechanics for fighting and turns and all that kind of thing is great to see. I think if there had been a massive change on that front, people would have been particularly annoyed, but I think they've managed to sort of nail that to the mast now and say that's not going to be changing. In this edition, the team has also taken an opportunity to streamline and remove as much unnecessary complexity as possible to create a smoother experience for players, which is nice to see. The likes of in-the-way charts that state different values for different obstacles and special strikes are good examples of this. Now here's where some interesting stuff comes up. The in-the-way chart was one that was seldom used, if not forgotten entirely, so we've done away with it. In the way are now passed simply by rolling a 4+. That's pretty much what I did anyway as a house rule, so it kind of makes sense that they've just made it a 4+, and that's that. Special strikes, on the other hand, we found many people simply weren't interacting with, or were trying to bend to gain an in-game advantage that wasn't intended. So they're sailing off to the west. All hand weapons are now the same, regardless of whether or not they're swords, axes, maces, or clubs. This also means players are free to convert their models to carry whatever weapons they wish. Great addition. I barely used special strikes. I think the only time I used special strikes was when I was playing through the demo encounters from the Hobbit box set. Other than that, I have very rarely ever used special strikes in any sense of the word. It's a rule that I continually forget exists, and much like in the way, I'm kind of glad that it's gone. It felt unnecessary and didn't necessarily add anything to what I was experiencing with the game. I'm sure other people will have their own thoughts on that, but that's just my thinking on that one there. There is also a greater focus on narrative armies than before, especially in matched play. The Middle-earth strategy battle game centers around key storylines from the movies and books, and allowing players to recreate those scenes and armies on the tabletop is a key part of the gaming experience. Every profile in the game is split into a series of army lists, each designed to focus on a particular scene, battle, or group of characters in the movies or books, and each with their own flavourful special rules. The aim is to have every army feel like an iconic scene and to evoke the wonderful world and themes of Middle-earth. So, kind of a little bit like what they were doing with Legendary Legions, but more widespread now, which sounds interesting. I assume they'll probably have ways for you to just build whatever you want, I suppose. And you could always do that at home anyway, but I like that they're trying to make things a little bit more thematic. Hopefully that feeds through into the match play side of things, as they say there. So people are taking thematic armies rather than just what's the most effective, which I think is good, and kind of that kind of thing where you just went for the most effective thing, the most meta thing, didn't necessarily feel very Middle-earthy, so I'm glad they've changed that. The current edition introduces Legendary Legions, special army lists that represent key armies and events from the page and screen. They prove to be widely popular, and they've taken this concept further. Every army list will be presented in the same manner as a Legendary Legion. Cool. Ensuring that every army fits the theme of Middle-earth. I can finally do Theodred's charge across the Eisen and just make it a legit thing. That would be cool. There are loads to choose from, and we've taken great care to make sure that there is a scene in the movie showcasing characters fighting alongside one another, that there is an appropriate army list to represent that on the tabletop. Very cool. For players that like to find the most potent combinations, fear not. Many of these army lists still provide ample opportunities for you to try out your different combinations and see what you can come up with. This all sounds great to me. As somebody who plays very thematic lists anyway, I see this as just a bonus for me, because I'll get some extra special rules to play around with, and making it so that it's just embedded into the core of the game just seems like a great idea to me. So playing around with that is solid. Enjoying it. Very nice. As part of a greater focus on narrative, each profile has been reworked, and many characters have received updated or new abilities to better represent them on the battlefield. This isn't to say that every profile has drastically changed, more that we have taken the opportunity to rebalance many of them, add extra flavour, or simply see if we can tweak how they work to better represent the characters on the battlefield. In many cases, the profiles will still function in the same way, however, they will have updated wording for their rules to fit in with the new edition to make them clearer for players to understand. All sounds very good so far. This is where we got into a little bit of detail about the fight values and things like that, so rather than me just read through this, I'll just give you a summary and that kind of thing. Effectively what they've done is there were a lot of characters that ended up in the 3 to 6 band of fight values. They've tweaked that so that there is more of a spread between them, so that it gives you more interesting and unique characters that feel like they work. So, as they use an example here, if somebody was on the edge of Fight 3, they probably should be a Fight 4. They've just made them Fight 4, which I think is great and means that your heroes and stuff like that are going to be able to do more badass things on the tabletop. They also added in a new characteristic, so intelligence now exists. This is going to take the place of things that would normally have been dealt with by courage in the previous editions. So you'll be using this for spotting and all that kind of stuff, and sort of rather than just using courage for everything, which I think is a great idea. There are also special rules on various profiles to help reflect the characters. This is something we've seen them been doing with the characters that they've previewed so far for Angmar, which I think is really nice, where they've taken particular characters and given them very, very thematic rules that have both a benefit and a drawback, to really push home that idea of a character feeling unique and interesting and diverse. So in this case, they talk about Sam being able to use his frying pan in combat, which is great, and Lurtz can shrug off wounds, and Isildur can potentially wield the shards of Narsil should Elendil be slain. Very cool indeed. We then got a little bit of an update on what they're doing with the army books. So, the new edition will come out. 2 supplements will be made available. There will be Armies of the Lord of the Rings and Armies of the Hobbit. They will focus entirely on the heroes, villains, warriors, creatures, and armies from those respective films. So anything that isn't in the films isn't going to be in those army books. So that's all going to be included as part of Armies of Middle-earth, which will focus on profiles that don't feature in the films themselves. And all of that has been reworked. Very, very interesting indeed. It's a bit of a shame that we're going to have to end up buying 3 books, I guess. But if they've done this to try to bulk out the existing books, so Armies of the Hobbit and Armies of the Lord of the Rings with these new Legendary Legions, and bring in all the stuff that's been released via supplements, that's great. But then having the Armies of Middle-earth attached to that as well, I suppose makes some sense. It's, as I say, it's a bit of a shame that you're going to have to buy 3 books, but if each of those books is filled with interesting content, then I don't necessarily that being a bad thing, which is good. It remains to be seen if that will be worth the money, but we will have to wait and see when the books land. There's also this talk about refreshing the game and some that might drift off, I suppose. So we'll read this one so I don't get it wrong. The Middle-earth strategy battle game has been going strong for 20 years and as a result has had many years of profiles and miniatures. To continue supporting the game and bringing you amazing new miniatures, some older profiles are going to have to make way for new, exciting ones to flourish. These will not feature in a supplement, however they will be feature in Legacies of Middle-earth, which will be available for free at the same time as Armies of Middle-earth is released. This PDF will contain updated rules for all the profiles to fit with the new edition, and we'll also have a selection of army lists for you to use these profiles with. While profiles and army lists in the Legacy of Middle-earth PDF will not be legal for official tournaments, you are still allowed to use them in independent store tournaments and gaming weekends and at home. So a little bit like what they've been doing with Warhammer 40,000 and with Warhammer Age of Sigmar and the Old World. They're going to legacy, effectively, a whole bunch of both miniatures and profiles from the game so that they can include new ones. I'll be very interested to see what they take out and what they leave in. Maybe there will be a selection of sort of quirkier stuff that ends up in Legacies. I'm thinking things like Murin and Dra perhaps might find their way into Legacies of Middle-earth. I suppose we'll have to see maybe some of the Forge World characters, some of the stuff from the expanded Hobbit range that was done by Forge World, potentially. But it does seem like it's going to be a lot of the older stuff that's going to be moving out in favour of new things. But I suppose we'll have to wait and see. Maybe Buddy Gan might end up vanishing into the mists. We'll have to wait and see, I suppose. Because they haven't made those miniatures for absolutely ages. But yeah, we'll have to look into this in more detail when it comes up, I suppose. With a comprehensive update to the game, all previous Middle-earth supplements will no longer be valid for match play. So you won't be able to use the Legendary Legions and the rules for the characters that are included within those supplements. So War in Rohan, War in Gondor, all that kind of thing. That makes sense. The narrative scenarios contained will still work through stories and scenes, although you'll have to tweak them slightly for the new edition. And obviously you can use them for painting and all that kind of stuff. Scenarios have never gone out of fashion, and they can always be used. Obviously you might tweak the miniatures that appear in those scenarios, depending on how strong or weak they've got as they move into the new edition. But it kind of makes sense, I suppose. I was kind of hoping that maybe all the supplements would be workable in some way, but now I'm thinking about it, and the fact that they are going to be reworking the profiles for pretty much every character and troop in the game, it feels like this was inevitable, to be honest. Yeah, it's a bit of a shame, but it doesn't mean that your books are invalid. You can still use them for your scenarios, which is what a lot of people were doing anyway, I suppose. And hopefully you had some good fun with them at the same time. It's never nice when anything is made invalid, but I can see that they're doing this for the right reasons based on where they're changing the game and what they're doing. Good news though, the Rise of Angmar supplement has been written with the new edition in mind, as I predicted. So it will be available for match play, and great, brilliant stuff. It will all be available, and it will give us a taste of what's coming up when we dive into Middle-earth and the new edition, because Rise of Angmar will give us that taster for it, which is very nice to see. Nice. Love it. Can't wait to see what they do with that. The fact that this is focusing on War of the Rohirrim and they are having a December release for the film probably means that we're going to get a Lord of the Rings Christmas, which is always good, a Middle-earth Christmas, and hopefully we'll be able to dive into these books and enjoy them over the Christmas period and have some fun with them. And Rise of Angmar probably coming out, let's say September, October. Well, let's say October, maybe, I would imagine, at this point. Because we're probably going to have Kill Team in September. So yeah, Rise of Angmar, October time, couple of months of gameplay, and then we're into the new edition for the New Year and Christmas. And last but not least, however, as the release of Rise of Angmar comes to a close with a new edition, there will be a new free Armies of Arnor and Angmar PDF available to download. Upon the launch of the new edition containing the rules for using the profiles and associated army lists from both Arnor and Angmar, so that anyone who purchases the new models doesn't have to wait for armies of Middle-earth to be able to field them in the new edition. So, interesting stuff there. Have I read that right then? Yeah, okay. Match play content for the final months of the game. Okay. Interesting. So yeah, so it is been made in tandem with the new edition, but there will also be the free PDF that adds even more in after the fact as well. So, interesting stuff. No changes to the core mechanics of the game, but they are going to be doing some changing and some updating when it comes to a few rules. In the way changing makes a lot of sense. I never remembered that it was different for different types of terrain, so for good that it's a 4+. Getting rid of special strikes, great. I never use them anyway. I don't care that they're gone. Fantastic. New profiles and everything being updated, very interesting. I will be eager to see exactly where they take Armies of Middle-earth and the Legendary Legions and Armies of the Lord of the Rings and Army of the Hobbit, and what's available in each of those and what makes them viable to buy. To be honest, I'm not necessarily that much of a fan of the Hobbit stuff anyway, so it might be a case that I buy the Lord of the Rings and the Armies of Middle-earth one first, and then maybe the Hobbit one later on. I suppose we'll see. As a completionist, I do quite like having all of them, though, I guess. And then, of course, we've got the free PDFs and everything coming out as well for legacy units. This is going to be a very interesting time for Middle-earth. A lot of people who've picked stuff up recently have been asking me whether or not it was a good idea to do so. You've still got at least, what are we in, August now? September, October, November, December. Maybe 4 or 5 months before the edition changes. Make great use of what's coming in, Battle of Osgiliath and all your boxes and the battle hosts and all that kind of thing. Play loads of games, get excited about it. All of the miniatures are still going to be valid. That's the most important thing. So they're not going to go out of fashion. And there will be profiles for everything anyway, because they're going to do the PDFs and all the books regardless. So there'll just be new profiles for the things that you're already playing with. It's a bit of a shame that if you bought the new rulebook and the armies books, that's all going to change. But it's the issue of anything from Games Workshop. At some point, something was going to change. Things are going to update. I've bought way too many codexes and battle tomes and army books over the years, only for them to change within 2 or 3 months. So while it's not great, hopefully it's a smooth enough transition for a lot of people, and you're getting enough games of Middle-earth as it stands right now before they do the major changes over to the new edition. I'd really like to hear what people think about this in the comments down below. Please let me know. Comment, share, subscribe, do all that good stuff. I am absolutely fascinated by this new edition and what they're planning to do with it. Hopefully we get a little bit more of a closer look at the books, I suppose, plural, in the near future, and we can have a little bit more of a chinwag about what they're doing and what they're changing and where it goes. Angmar will be out relatively soon in the grand scheme of things, followed by, I would imagine, a new edition towards the end of the year. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Like, share, subscribe, do all that good stuff, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye for now.